Hello and welcome to my Civilization VII challenge video. In this video I'm going to be attempting to win a Pax Imperatoria, Domination Golden Age, in the Antiquity Age. I'm going to be doing this by purchasing and building absolutely 0 units within my city. I noticed that this would be a potentially fun challenge to do with Tecumseh and the Persian Empire, because Tecumseh has the benefits from all of the city-state friendships and the unity between them, and that whole thing, and the Persians for having the Immortals, who have all of the different narrative events that can get you extra army units. I figured with those two things combined, I could field a decently powerful army made up of fairly few units, especially if I could find a bunch of militaristic city-states, independent peoples. It didn't really work out that way. I ran into, obviously, the normal amount of independent peoples, but I didn't really run into, deity, difficulty, standard speed, continent, small map, standard. But I didn't really run into any militaristic city-states, but just having that large number of city-states in my empire was sort of enough to get me the juice that I needed to get over. So that was the primary objective of this video. You'll see it was one of the more interesting and tense setups for my empire that I've had in my experience in Civ VII. It was very peculiar. I think this challenge could be done with Persia and a bunch of different leaders potentially. I think Trungtrak could have probably worked very well with this challenge as well, getting the extra general to maybe overcome the lack of free units. Machiavelli could potentially work pretty well too, getting the extra influence to get more city-states in your empire. That one would maybe be more contingent on those militaristic city-states showing up. Greece would have also been a potentially good civilization to choose here for that extra bonuses from the city-states, but I just thought having the purely militaristic aspects would be potentially the easiest and the best way to avoid being on the more settlement happy side of Pax Imperatoria. I did choose to go to war, number one, because even if I was playing this normally, it would have been the sensible thing to do based on how the game sort of shakes out in terms of the geography of the empires. And number two, because it would be boring to just say like, oh, I want a domination golden age without actually doing any war. Got our first narrative event here. You'll find that throughout this game I pretty much exclusively was choosing influence over just about anything else. I will periodically be choosing the science and culture bonuses as well. I found that by and large I really didn't have much use for gold. I did periodically buy buildings and I needed it to upgrade units here and there, but I was only ever hurting for gold a few times throughout this game. Obviously going to choose the army there, or the warrior there, to get some kind of level of defense. I did choose to build scout instead of warrior. I could have maybe argued that because it was mandatory I had to pick, but yeah, starting off this game I'm pondering pretty heavily on potentially trying to get some extra science in production, but really ultimately at the end of the day it's going to always be influence. It's the most critical resource. Got nervous here meeting Xerxes. Xerxes can be pretty powerful and pretty aggressive in my games, but in this particular instance we wound up being pretty cool through most of the early part of the game. Looking at the tech tree here, I was pretty much just trying to confirm that my initial proclivities were correct, that masonry and bronze working are going to be the main technology I need to research early on. Masonry for the walls to help stave off any early aggro from the AI, and bronze working so I can get my Immortals going to get some of those narrative events potentially if it worked out that way, just to bolster my general overall strength. Starting off with the cultural city-state. Cultural and science are great to start out with. Getting those free technologies and civics, if you're going for a full city-state playthrough, is pretty major. Trunk track, sorry for butchering that. She was also making me very nervous, getting to the more aggressive and potentially bellicose civilizations on my borders is no fun, but we made it work here. Prioritizing a little bit of productivity here. Didn't want to start out rejecting anything from the AIs. Definitely didn't want to get on their bad side too quickly. There's Laventa, Scientific City-State. Perfect. I am just going to probably keep calling them city-states. I know that they're independent peoples now. They're pretty interchangeable to me, and it's still stuck in my brain to call them city-states. I'm getting there, but yeah, needless to say. And there was the Grand Canyon. I knew that being so close to my borders was going to be potentially quite helpful. And also a source of conflict, as you'll see. I don't really know what I was thinking here, moving my warrior into aggressive range there. Friedrich was a good find. Him being less aggressive, generally speaking, was pretty critical to my stability, especially just kind of because, as you'll see as I discover the lands of all these empires, I'm kind of stuck right in the middle. At least that's the way it shapes out. So being somewhat confident that my northern borders aren't going to be threatened was very important. I feel like generally I do have a tendency to want to build more buildings and build bigger cities rather than build units, so this game was kind of nice for me in that way, to where I'm like, oh well, I can't build an army anyhow, so I might as well just build all of these productivity buildings. Here, my only real choice of what to build as a settler, but it was pretty much time to get that going anyway. Get my free great general. I read this full narrative event. It's a funny one. Again, not really needing gold. I'll take the long-term yield there for sure. Influence over a codex, easy choice. Gave me the push to go ahead and get suzerainty of Laventa. I think I pondered there briefly trying to incite him against Xerxes, but here I'm just refamiliarizing myself with the Persian civics and the civic tree. I did aspire for Gate of All Nations, again, to keep myself protected. It's a wonder that I really think is useful for just about any civilization. Even if you're playing a militaristic game, it's good to be able to, especially in deity games with very strong AI, in my opinion, to be able to always dictate war on your own terms, or if it's going to be dictated to you, you at least start with a pretty strong material advantage. And I'm not sure how sophisticated the AI was in this kind of thing, but I did find, generally speaking, that I did find entirely that they did not at any point declare war on me. So clearly my strategy worked out pretty well. Wanted to get open borders so I could move my settler through, but he rejected it. A sign of things to come already, as you can see. These mountains and the Grand Canyon are making things very difficult. I did ponder Der Shuriken here, but I figured that scouting and potentially trying to find more goody huts and get a good lay of the land would be a better use of my resources at this time. Especially too, because with how long that was going to take, I wanted to use that for Gate of All Nations since I got the advantage from Persia. I had mentioned that I wasn't too worried about Friedrich, though he was the first to denounce me, seemingly for no reason. I was a little confused by that, but we generally remained amicable for most of this game. Deciding between which mine to sacrifice for my monument. I think if I did it again, I would have put monument as the first of those two buildings, but yeah, at this juncture I'm just searching high and low for the next city-state independent people to add to my collection. I did decide to bring my Great General back to my land. I was getting a little bit nervous about all those troops moving into my land from Xerxes. I decided to go ahead and try getting Dividorum, but I wound up abandoning that and just taking the influence refund later on. Found the next city-state. It was here that I was kind of regretting spending the resource on Dividorum, but I felt a little foolish there for not immediately taking the Grand Canyon tile to secure that for my empire, but turned out alright. I did wind up getting a hold of it later on, as you'll see. first city-state here. You do think about it every time. I find that Shrines to the Jinn is going to be my choice 99 times out of 100. Same thing with the equivalent in the scientific city-state. I wanted to do the free warrior there, but I just didn't think that it was going to be realistically achievable. So I chose the influence one because I knew that it would be free and that it could give me the juice I need to get hold of this city-state. I wound up picking the mission there, thinking that maybe I could ally myself with Trung Trek, but I think even at the time I thought that maybe was a mistake and that it wouldn't be possible. I was a little confused here initially how I got visual over all of that land. I'm still actually to this point not 100% sure how that all became scouted out. As you can see, having that settlement from Xerxes smack dab in the middle of my empire there was really starting to get on my nerves pretty much right away. I considered getting some extra defense, then I picked up writing for no reason. Goes to show that this challenge is pretty achievable, even with pretty suboptimal play, according to my own objectives. Another free warrior here, very critical. Start building walls with all of that bonus to my building construction. And then Gate of All Nations was next to come. That is where I lost that scout. It's moments like these where I see these big masses of troops moving near my city-state that I get very sweaty and go ahead and throw up some walls in my newest town settlement on the Grand Canyon. Lost another scout, but I wasn't sad about it. I did want to pick up Terracotta Army. The extra grade general I thought would be pretty helpful, but it was already taken or otherwise unavailable to me. wanted that militaristic attribute point as well from the mausoleum, but decided to go a different route. It's funny, my only objective in my start was to start with a good militaristic independent people or two, but didn't really work out that way, and there Frederick goes, getting the only militaristic city-state in the entire continent. There, I realized I've been leaving my scout on the lookout stand for a couple years in game. I knew that gold wasn't critically important to my empire, so I chose gemstones here for the lapis lazuli. It was nice having such a navally powerful city-state so close to me. I was debating the idea of incorporating them because it was a decent enough coastal town location, get a good fishing town there to beef up my capital, but decided against it to keep the bonus to my combat strength. Here, my great general, who was traveling to Hagmatana, kept going back and forth. Friedrich was just intentionally or accidentally blocking me from getting to my own city because no one wanted to give me open borders. Decided to settle up there between those two rivers in true Persian fashion. Pondered building Petra. That didn't work out. Decided to go for a shuriken here. I knew that iron was going to be very important to my objectives. At the time, I wasn't sure who I was going to go to war with first. I had figured it was probably going to be Xerxes, but in either case, I decided to go ahead and get that in my resource network. Khmer city to the south of me also really peeved me quite a bit. I knew that I wasn't going to be building that many more cities, so I took the extra production in the capital. Bought walls immediately. Lost my last scout, but I had already uncovered most of the continent, so I wasn't too worried about it. Again, still just saying yes to everything. I wasn't sure. Wasn't sure where I was going to be going to war first. I think at the time I still thought that Khmer Trung Track would be my first target at Indrapura. I knew that it would be more difficult for her to get military support over there. Picked up the gold first in case I needed to buy more walls in the near future or other buildings. Picked up the wheel so that I could get the villa and get that extra influence. Knowing that bronze working was going to be next to get that bonus, the bronze working tech mastery for the bonus combat strength. I did wind up getting Dur Sharukin. Between that and the Gate of All Nations, I think the AI was keen enough to know that going to war with me was going to potentially be more trouble than it was worth due to how, I mean, the land I had was pretty mid. And presumably I would be in a decent enough position to build my own military if I wasn't doing this challenge. The salt was useless. I don't know why I even bothered slotting it in. Missed a couple potential turns to get started on that last city-state there. I think my rationale at the time was, why even bother building that last set of walls if they get that far? There's really, their run would be over. A couple of suboptimal buildings in that quarter, but pretty suboptimal style of playing anyway. Consider settling closer to Xerxes. But then I saw that iron up there and I knew that that's what I was 100% going to need, so I was figuring out where to maximize my resources. And I went one tile up from that suggested pin. As you can see, my settler has to go the long way around. Really quite difficult to get anywhere to the west because of that city that Xerxes settled. Everyone hates me, even though they were the ones for settling me. Typical Civ VII AI circa the current patch. Trungtrek had absolutely no reason to even start trying to befriend that city-state over me, but by golly, she did anyway. I knew that there was one that I was missing. I couldn't remember which one. Grand Canyon given some pretty sweet science yields. Didn't want to specialize quite yet. I think I was choosing here between the extra culture or the extra policy slot. I think my brain was saying to not pick up Oracle due to the sacrificed production of taking over a potential mine spot. I do think that that is a severe limitation on Oracle, and I really don't like building it for that reason. The extra culture from narrative events, maybe for like Jose Rizal or another Civ where you're going for a lot of narrative events, it would be worthwhile, but I just think that amount of culture becomes pretty negligible pretty quickly. Chose that mine spot there just to keep building up my border against Greece, or Rome rather. Lost the Hanging Gardens, decided to build Mausoleum for that militaristic attribute point. I thought that was far more worth sacrificing a rough tile. Mausoleum was going to the Morians. Thought maybe I had a chance. Wanted the Weiyang Palace, but it was unavailable to me. Decided to finally go for the Persian civics. I wasn't 100% sure if maybe just by virtue of completing them I might get a free Immortal or two. Lost out on all of the wonders. Decided to go for Mundo Perdido. I had 3 or 4 tropical tiles that would potentially make it worthwhile. Again, not needing much gold, decided to just go for the maximum one. Love getting all the free tech masteries and all the free civic masteries from befriending all the city-states. Skipped the construction animation there, but Gwendolyn Christie decided to go ahead and talk to me anyway. Decided to try and compete with Trungtrek for that particular city-state. We wound up being tied. I don't know what the tiebreaker would have been for who gets suzerainty of that city-state. It wound up becoming a moot point as I gave myself a little more support just to ensure that I got a hold of it. Without the ability to buy units or work on units in any capacity, besides civilian units, I wound up building quite a few wonders in my capital just for fun. The economic attribute point, as useless as that is for my objectives, generally speaking. I think I wound up going for Indrapura here for gold resource. Buying walls, things like that. City resources are not super important to me given that I don't have a very large empire at this juncture. Bonus there. Gonna have just enough influence to get that locked away. Thankfully, I remembered to get that last bit of support in there. So you're seeing the growth rate that I decided to probably go ahead and specialize Hagmatana. Watching this back, I'm still not sure why I didn't buy walls in Bactria. Decided to convert Sparta into a city. Maybe not right now, but I do. Yeah, I do convert Sparta into a city. Just thinking that I need the extra production. Again, I don't know 100% what kind of things are going to be triggers for narrative events. So I thought potentially settling a second city would be something that could get me a little extra bonus. I also knew that I needed a little more influence, so that's why I'm queuing up the villa and the monument first. Just try and push me up, because now that all of the city-states are unlocked, I knew that the next phase of my strategy would begin, which would be levying units with my influence. Again, don't know why I slotted that salt in. I guess it gave me the economic legacy point, but get the unit flanking. Here you can see I'm starting to really gear up for an offensive, paying attention to where I'm at in Pax Imperatoria. Get the science legacy point as well, purely by accident. Here I was thinking about building more wonders. Choosing the science here over the codex, easy choice. Go for ironworking, get that last military upgrade going. Wasn't sure how much influence these units were going to cost. So I just kept checking in and checking in. Built another scout just because I didn't know what to do at that time. And again, ultimately, the things going on and getting built in my capital are pretty unimportant at this juncture. And so it begins. Levied my first warrior from La Venta. And here things start to really pick up. I do wonder if it would be possible to have done this without also using my influence to buy units and just purely trying to fuel it from the narrative events. But that seems a little bit excessively restrictive, but maybe that's something I could try again in the future. The only thing about that would just be that it would definitely require re-rolling for militaristic city-states, because those units are going to be very critical. And as of the current patch of this game, there is no easy way to re-roll your start location. So here I am noticing that they've got spearmen and no more warriors, so I look elsewhere. As you can see, I'm quickly realizing just how much of a chore it is to move my units anywhere in, so I'm really starting to think which opponent, which AI I go to war with first. Here I'm running out of cultures worth researching, technologies worth researching. Another free warrior, Immortal. Get him up to my great general. I decided to delete my settler here because I knew that I was running out of time. The crisis had just started, and I knew that I needed to achieve my victory through conquest, not through settlement. So I decided to gear up. Wanted to try and bring my general into flank, but Rome would not let me move through their territory, so it looks like I was going to have to go through that narrow mountain pass. So I did. Just a matter of waiting for my reinforcements to arrive. Glad I had sufficient gold to get that taken care of. I also see that Xerxes' city is revolting under the crisis, so I knew that I definitely had an opening to make an offensive here. Pick up an archer just to stick in Bactria to try and defend my flank. Of course, it was injured, I wasn't paying attention, so I had to let him sit down and recover for a bit. So I knew that I had reinforcements coming in pretty quick. Set my migrant out in Bactria. I don't know why I keep fiddling around with that settler or scout. Paid extra for the spearmen just because the Immortals are so strong. Here I was a little confused why that sometimes happens where I'm allowed to stick 6 units in my Great General. Commander, sorry if you viewers have been upset by me continuing to call them Great Generals and City-States. Still very Civ 5/Civ 6 brained. Start building Paradisas and steppe libraries pretty indiscriminately. Here I was, just getting everything squared away before I declared war. Trying to see if he's at war with anyone else. Same thing. My fear at this time was that if I declared war on Xerxes, that suddenly I would be ganged up on by the AI, as does tend to happen in this game. Easy choice for the militaristic attribute point. That was definitely very clutch narrative event there, right as I was about to declare war anyway. I never wound up equipping Shah and Shah, but I wish I had. Here it begins. Decide to go in first to see if I can lock up another unit. Want to wait for a melee. Wound up taking Bactria to be a fort town. I was bummed initially because I had forgotten that the hub town option is not available in Antiquity Age. I really wanted the extra influence to try and secure more levies, but I was mistaken about that, so Fort Town was what I settled on. Pondered doing some espionage or some sanctions, but decided to just hop into a war, knowing that I just did not simply have the time. Yikes, 2 archers. I was very pissed off about that. Built a fishing quay right under the tornado. I did wind up making a bit of a tactical error here. In that I unlocked the 3rd tier melee units right away. Also felt foolish for not picking up Bronze Working 2 earlier. Still piddling around with that scout, sending him on super long journeys for no reason. So I wound up cycling out units just to get them upgraded, knowing that I was only going to be able to get a few units into the enemy territory at a time anyhow. Really don't know why I spent any amount of time thinking about what buildings to build. I take the sacrifice to my growth. I get a little nervous here. My first impulse is to buy an archer to stick in my town, but obviously have to go against that instinct. Lost an immortal here, and that's when I really started to get quite in despair that I wasn't going to be able to get this done fast enough as the time continues to tick down on the age. But with my reinforcements coming in, and then I finally start getting the Immortals events. Get some free units. Another 2 free Immortals there. A little low on gold, but besides that, just keep on building random stuff and hope that I can get these settlements conquered in time for Pax Imperatoria to be complete. Sending Immortals on the flank around the mountain, even though they're not upgraded. Build over at Paradisa for no reason. My city-state took care of that random Chola warrior that was near the south of my territory, so Up to the front he goes. Move my commander up to get that extra experience, even though that's not how that works. Realize that I have an unupgraded unit entering the front. Easy choice, picking up route. Realize that I lost my archer. I never even noticed that. It's like, what do I do? And I ran away. Decided to spend some influence on war support instead of new units. Find it annoying how you have to pick something to build in these cities even though they're revolting, and why even display things that can't be built during the revolt, but I'm sure that'll be fixed soon. I decided to send that spearman all the way back to where he came from. Here I noticed that my city-state allies were being captured. Decent strategy by the AI to try and reduce my combat effectiveness of my Immortals, or rather of Tecumseh's special ability. It was here that the jump up to 85% of the era made me quite nervous. I hadn't even noticed that there were archers in there because the general was over the archer icon for some reason. So that was an annoying little issue there. Here I pondered trying to get the extra reinforcements, but then I realized that that was probably a complete waste. And knowing that I wasn't going to get any cavalry or ranged units, I was hesitant to continue down that path, but it worked out pretty well. Here I got in some pretty harsh despair that I wasn't going to be able to finish this out, that I had come all this way for nothing. Not being able to get peace with Xerxes was going to really leave my flank open as I would try to go for Chimera's cities, Indrapura, and whatever one to the south of it. Did the math, realized I needed a couple more settlements captured. So it was at that juncture that I was pretty upset with how things were turning out, but I persevered anyway, thinking that, there's always a chance. Here, just to avoid having to even look at this city again, I decided to have it use production to repair, which is something I almost never do. I almost always use gold in this scenario, but here I see that just like with Xerxes, Trungtrek City was being set upon by the crisis. So, and here's where the other big benefit came into play. Xerxes took Champa, which gave me an opening to go in and go ahead and reconquer it. Given that you can't liberate city-states anyway, it was really quite nice that I was able to just take that. So a great stroke of luck there. Here, I finally get rid of the scout that I was just sending around for no reason. I never wind up using a single ranged attack in the course of this entire game, but good to know it was bonused if I need it. Trungtrek is blockading my spearmen from rejoining the rest of my army. Here I get the warrior for cheap. And don't want to obviously send him marching through the enemy territory, so I have to micro his travel. Actually get net health from that, thanks to the Immortals' ability to heal on kill. Here, once again, I'm set upon by Xerxes' army. Still keeping an eye on that age track that we're sitting at 89%. Here I decided to just get rid of that Paradisa I had just built. I think my choice at that time was to try and pillage that farm, so I didn't want it to get killed by the other units in the area, even though I could have finished off that elephant. Pondered getting the extra command range, but I think just making sure I don't lose any units was the most important thing to me. And we're about to see the next most major stroke of luck with this entire run. Xerxes offers me another settlement. I take that offer in a heartbeat. So that knocks me up to one last settlement needed to make it happen, but it also jumps the age progress to 94%. So now I am really sweating, making sure that I can try and secure this victory before the age runs out. Last crisis policy slot. I think I'm willing to sacrifice the gold here for sure. I realize the error of my ways. This unit can now no longer travel to my lands. Xerxes, of course, will not take open borders. So that spearman or warrior becomes trapped in the tundra for the rest of this age. As is the theme of this entire starting location, can't get my units anywhere. Start going for cultural festivals just to pass the time. Declare a quick war on Chungtrak. Can't be bothered to do any more preparation. Gotta make sure we get this done before the age ends. My random spearman up here is going to take out that general. No more time for units, just extra war support. Let's keep checking to make sure that I'm on track for this. Should have just deleted this guy. This warrior is just trapped down here. Would have been pretty dreadful to lose my commander there. Decided to send him back to pillage that woodcutter, only to realize that there were archers there. Chungtrak gets a little bit of war support back for herself. Decided to go ahead and take out that general for no reason. Thankfully, the archers don't do anything to the south, so able to secure my health there. 96% complete on the age. I always forget about the coordinated attack features. I seem to always remember it for ranged units, but never for my melee. In part because it's more costly if your melee units wind up taking more damage than you'd expect. Obviously, ranged units have no such limitation. So even if you wind up doing ineffective attacks, at least you won't lose your ranged units. But if you do ineffective melee attacks, your melee units will suffer. And it's moments like this where I'm sitting here thinking, you know, how often have you seen the game jump from 96% to 100% complete and the age just ends, right? So every time I clicked that next turn button, I got a little sweatier and sweatier that just some random wonder was going to get built somewhere. But thankfully, it jumps up to 97%. The city is empty, easy for the conquest. So I don't know why I belabor the point any longer than I have to, but I do wind up just going ahead and taking the city. And Pax Imperatoria is complete. The age is over. Nothing else matters. And with that, the challenge is complete. This was a fun one. This is my first ever challenge video. First ever time playing the game in this kind of way. And I picked what turned out to be a fairly easy one. I got this one on my first attempt. Was nervous about the AI's aggressiveness, but either through my focus on building walls and Gate of All Nations and all of these other defensive features, maybe that was what kept them from being too much more aggressive. Had I not done those things, who knows, maybe they would have decided to go ahead and capture one of my towns or go on the offensive. It looks like everyone was pretty hostile with each other, so maybe it was just a matter of not wanting to be the first one to make a move, you know? Maybe they're that sophisticated, who knows? But this was a fun one. This was fun making this video. Let me know your guys' thoughts. If you want me to try this again, maybe make it a little more difficult on myself. Try again without levying units, possibly, or really trying to focus on rerolls for those militaristic city-states. Let me know if you want me to continue in the exploration age. I'm not sure how realistic that will be to accomplish, but who knows? I can do some research into the exploration age civs and see which one would give me the best chance and the most free units. That is to say, if I continue with this current civilization, or if I decide to go for a new fresh start right into the exploration age. I do feel like Charlemagne would be another leader very well equipped to this, especially with Normandy. But yeah, let me know if this is something you guys would be interested in. Thanks for taking the time to watch this challenge video, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.